leaders. Welcome into the Leadership Sandbox. I'm Tammy J, your host, and excited to have you join me today for this lively conversation. We're going to try to get it done in 7 minutes for some 7-minute strategies here on the power of self-leadership. What does that mean, right? How do we master self-leadership? I'm going to give you 3 powerful strategies today that you can use immediately should you choose to. You can also share them with your team so we raise up the success of our team by being a healthy leader, a healthy individual in the workplace. So kick off your shoes, step into the sandbox. I'm diving in. Let's go. All right. Why does self-management matter for leaders? Well, I believe that it's a cornerstone for great leadership. I believe that we cannot lead others until we lead ourselves well. So a lot of times, I'm going to say it that way, many times I see leaders going into leadership positions, as you've heard me say, because they build a widget really well, but they never learn the tools and the skills on how to develop others around them. But they also don't learn this how do I develop me as an individual? And our strategy number 1 for developing me as an individual, right, is identifying how to be radically self-aware, right? Build radical self-awareness. So that's strategy number 1 for leaders that want to transform and master self-leadership. Strategy number 1, build radical self-awareness, because it's the foundation of emotional intelligence, that EQ that's so important. We hear it talked about so much, and HR is all about it. And I'm really more focused on behaviors, and yes, emotionally aware people have the ability to identify their own behaviors that they want to change. Because see, what I know when leaders struggle with EQ is that they often fall into a trap of solely focusing on other people's behaviors, right? And they're missing the blind spot, right? They're missing their own trip hazard, right? Their own warning signs that they might be failing and unaware of something they're emotionally triggered by and bringing it into the workplace. When we build sadical, yes, I said sadical. That's a new word. When we build radical self-awareness, we take that time to self-reflect in the mirror. Me and my mirror. I love the mirror. I'm going to look in the mirror and say, how could I have responded different in that last scenario, in that last situation? I'm going to ask myself that question. I want to reflect, what is it that got me today? What is it that got under my skin in that conversation? I want to look and reflect and ask myself that and journal that and take the time to reflect. Why? Because that then leads into what I get to do different the next time. Not because I'm pointing fingers to look for blame. I just want to know what I can only control me. And so I want to know what I'm doing or what I might have done or what caused that reaction in me, because I really want to be more responsive and less reactionary. I want to be in seeking feedback mode. To build that radical self-awareness means I got to ask others for help. I want to hear the reflection, the view from their chair. I'm going to actively seek from peers and from team members. And I want to ask them, what's one thing I could have done different in that situation? What's one thing you wanted more of or less of from me? We had that tension come up in the work, in the conference room or on that call. Let's go back after the tensions have calmed down and say, what could we have done different there? Let's brainstorm that. Not about pointing fingers. It's not about pointing fingers. It's about seeking understanding and getting that clarity. Because why? Because that shows that we're embracing a growth mindset, which is so important for strategy number 1 and radical self-awareness. Self-awareness is like a mirror, friends. The mirror. Self-awareness is like the mirror. And if you never look into it, like my handy little handheld mirror, right? If you never look into it, you're never going to see what adjustments that you as the individual will want and even need. I'll use need intentionally, need to make to change the environment that you're in. Okay. Strategy number 2, this one is really important. And I might spend a little bit extra time here because strategy number 2 is about mastering emotional regulation. And I worked with somebody for several years within an organization that had absolutely no emotional regulation. And their EQ, their emotional awareness is I think they just use it as fluff words, but really this individual, this one specific individual, and I know people that still work for him and work with him. And I'm thinking, why are you still there? I can draw a boundary around myself, which is actually strategy number 3. But number 2 is I want to master that emotional regulation. When I'm around people that don't have it mastered, man, it just sucks the energy out of the room. And a leader's emotional state sets the tone for the team. And I've seen it break down teams. I've seen it bring teams to a grinding halt when the leader comes in completely dysregulated emotionally, overreacting to everything, unaware what they're doing is causing everybody to shut down, and then gets upset because people aren't performing at the level of expectation that they had. Well, that's a leader with low EQ, low emotional intelligence. And leaders who often are reactionary or react impulsively, they create that toxic ripple effect. And it's dangerous. It's a dangerous situation to put yourself in. So here's how you implement mastering emotional regulation. Number 1, I want you to pause, take a breath, and ask yourself the next best question. Until you do that and you slow your own breathing down and you slow your own brain down of what am I reacting to right now and how do I get into a response mode and what's the time limit? Can I just take some time on that? When you push pause and you start reflecting and you take a breath, it slows everything down. So then you know how to respond. Number 2, get underneath the tip of that iceberg that you're reacting to. What is it at a root level? What's the weightiness underneath it? Name that emotion, name that feeling that you're actually having, because that takes away its power. When we name it, it takes away its power. When we're in reactionary mode, we're giving that reaction and that emotion all the power. We want to slow it down, take a breath, take away that power. And number 3, I want you to get to response, not reaction. How do we do that? We want to choose our measured response that aligns with our core values, that aligns with how we want to be known, seen, and celebrated as a leader. Mastering our emotions first will help the team around you. Leaders who manage their emotions lead teams that manage themselves well. Be that leader. All right, strategy number 3. I said it earlier. I want you to set boundaries, non-negotiable boundaries. What does that mean? Well, when leaders lack boundaries, right, they often burn out quickly. And those leaders who lack boundaries burn people around them out. But when we are modeling healthy boundaries, that we're creating a sustainable work environment, because that unsustainability from lack of boundaries is what might be causing, those habits might be causing teams and people on your team to exit. So if you have high turnover, let's get to the boundaries. How are we doing with boundaries? And setting those boundaries ensures that you can show up as your best self, and you can promote that for others around you. So you want to do that, protect your time, do some time blocking for creative space, time blocking for self-reflection, time blocking to grab your trusty little mirror, which, stay tuned, I will get you one if you want one, your little sandbox mirror, and reflect into it, right? Take that time, protect that time. That's very important. And learn to say no. No is a complete sentence. And boundaries require us to say no. When we have our time blocking on our calendar set, it makes saying no much easier. Much easier. Your non-negotiables, no thank yous, all of that, right? You can say, I'd love to help you with that project, but right now I've got this to work on and I can help you at this time. You can set it to the future if that helps. But the bottom line is this: no is a complete sentence. Use it as part of your boundary, and then communicate your boundaries clearly. Why? Because leaders who communicate their boundaries clearly to their team actually support the team boundaries overall. And people understand because you've communicated what's expected of them, and you've empowered them to go in and solve their own problems. If you don't feel that you can draw a boundary over an hour a week or even 30 minutes every day for you to have that self-reflection time, so you are raising your emotional intelligence and your emotional awareness and your self-regulation and all these things that are healthy for you and in your self-leadership so you can lead others well, then you're not actually equipping people to be the leaders and the work in your team that you need them to be. Your team can do without you. Protect your time. Give them the same gift at that same time. Boundaries aren't barriers, friends. They're bridges to sustainable leadership. Boundaries are healthy. So, recapping for you in a minute. Here we go. Self-awareness, radical self-awareness strategy number 1. Emotional regulation. How do we be responsive versus reactionary? And then boundaries. Those are all game changers for you as a leader in the sandbox. And I want to encourage you to think about which one strategy, radical self-awareness, emotional regulation, setting boundaries, and time blocking. What one strategy will you try on this week to increase your healthy self-leadership next week? Just one. Pick one. I want you to head over to TammyJBond.com. I want you to head to Instagram. I want you to look me up on LinkedIn. I want you to put in the comments there what boundary or which one of these strategies you're going to put in place, which one resonates with you to try on. I want to hear about it. And if you want one of these handy little mirrors so that you can have it at your desk too, to self-reflect with yourself, I want you to put that you're going to DM me on Instagram or LinkedIn, send me a message, and I will personally put one in the mail to you because who wouldn't want this fun little mirror? And if you're listening and not watching it, you're going to have to head to the YouTube channel to see what I'm talking about with your playing in the sandbox mirror because it's a great tool for leaders who are actively pursuing ways to self-lead well. All right. That's it for the sandbox today. A little bit more than 7 minutes, but that's okay because you got 3 strategies that you can employ right away to transform your self-leadership. Your team will thank you. They will thank you on Monday morning when you try these on and start to actively engage with your own healthy self-leadership first. Thanks for joining me in the sandbox today. Make it a great day. God bless.